What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the Gangsta Girls mixtape by PSC. Basically, this product is called The Indictment, and it came out somewhere in 2005. Now, the thing about this particular project is Wikipedia says that this project came out on Halloween. Wikipedia says that this project came out on Halloween in 2006, but I think this project came out in 2005 just because most of the productions on here, there's some beats on here that came out in 2005. There's like some songs from the PSC album from 2005, and there's T.I.'s movie soundtrack song from the Longest Yard soundtrack, which is on here, which is Bounce Like This. That's particularly on this mixtape. So it's just some interesting stuff. This is some 2005 type pitches. Now, because this is such an older mixtape, I'm not really quite because this is such an older mixtape and DatPiff and places like that aren't around as much, I'd have to say I'm not really full-blown as sure as to when the exact date of this mixtape really came out. I think even Google and places like that don't really know and stuff. So my guess is it came out somewhere in like the summer or fall of 2005, something like that. It may have even been Halloween of 2005, but I want to say either came out right before the PSC album from September 2005 or right after it, just within that pitch. Just as like some extra imbuement to help package the album and market it as far as that particular pitch kind of happened. The PSC album from September 2005, so it's a pretty good pitch. I mean, usually that's what Gangsta Girls tapes kind of do, is they help market and promote like albums that are coming out around that time. That's what happened with Young Dro and Jeezy and some of those type folks, I'd have to say. So it's a pretty good concept to get that. But this is kind of a decent mixtape here, I'd have to say. I appreciate some of the concepts about it. There are some secret songs on here that you won't be able to find anywhere else, which is a pretty good pitch. There's some folks on here, definitely some interesting type stuff. Even T.I. has like a song on here that's not to be found anywhere else. Interesting pitch. He teams up with Sleepy Brown, is what I have to say. But it's just kind of, there's a lot of jargon on this particular project. Not necessarily jargon in like poor quality, but just kind of the concept of a lot of skits and interludes and stuff like that. And for the most part, you get the PSC songs that you get are just not the PSC songs that you get are individualized, so it's more like just individual Mac Boney type songs. Although I do think some PSC members are kind of on some of these songs. It doesn't really say full blown just because the information about this mixtape is kind of minimal. But Mac Boney has a few songs on here. Big Country King has at least one song or two. Young Dro has at least one song. This chick named Ecstasy has a couple songs in here. So some good pitches about it just in particular. It's kind of like a compilation mixtape, I'd have to suppose in particular as far as that pitch kind of goes along with it. But I just look after it. So basically out of 16, from minus all the interludes and skits, I'd say there are 16 songs in this particular project. And out of those 16, I wound up recommending to you in some fashion 10. Now the thing about that particular kind of is at least 6 of those are almost songs. 6 of the 10 songs I recommend are almost songs in some fashion. Basically what I mean by that is 4 songs can be found on other projects like the PSC album, and then the Longest Yard soundtrack for the T.I. song, and then like the Young Dro mixtape, Day One for the song Shell, I would have to say. But that's 4 songs. There's still 6 songs in some new fashion that can't be found anywhere else. Now, of those 6 remaining songs, there's at least 2 almost songs that I'm kind of on the fence about, but 4 songs that are just entirely new to this particular project and exclusive to it that I full-blown recommend. So it's kind of the concept. When you dice that all down, it's a little bit more of a haphazard type project, but it does have some beaming kind of quality that is relatively worth it, I'd have to say in particular. So just kind of talk about, I do like this kind of stylish kind of extra package of just some extra kind of PSC content, because for the most part, it seemed like they kind of burnt out after the 2005 album. Just not much happened with them apart from that one appearance on the song Bankhead off of T.I.'s album in 2006. So it felt like they didn't really make it out of 2005 that much. But Big Country King did drop an album in 2008. I reviewed that particular album. It's pretty good pitch. Definitely recommend that review and stuff like that. Just check out the T.I. playlist, I'd have to say. But basically, I'll go ahead and recommend the 10 songs I recommend on here. So it'd be Fuck Where You From, which is a PSC song. Set It Out, which is a PSC single. This is like the second single off this 25 to Life album, I'd have to say. Lollipop Gangsta, I Hustle, Shell, Bounce, which is the T.I. song Bounce Like This, Hustle Harder, $1 Million Trap House, Anho, which is Anaho. It's kind of slang word to kind of say Anaho, something like that. And then Ooh Ooh, which is the Governor song, which Governor is kind of an R&B type cat. So basically, I'm going to recommend the 4 songs I full-blown recommend that are the new songs that are complete songs that I recommend on here. So that would be Young Dro's Lollipop Gangsta, Mac Boney's I Hustle, Big Country King's $1 Million Trap House, and Governor's Ooh Ooh songs, I'd have to say. So the 2 almost songs that are new songs, but I'm kind of on the fence about, would be T.I. and Sleepy Brown's Hustle Harder, and then basically Ecstasy's Anaho type song, I'd have to say about that one. So Basically talk about Annie Ho. Basically, this is like a pounding kind of leftover early 2000s crunk noise of a song. I'd have to say in particular, this song gets things started, but it's got kind of a basic beat. So this is just like a typical kind of crunk type. This is just like a typical kind of 3-6 Mafia, Lil Jon type crunk type tune. I'd have to say in particular, as far as that pitch kind of goes along with it, just some standard noise as far as that pitch kind of goes. Just tear the club up, thug, some of those type pitches. Relatively to like the early 2000s, if you like Lil Scrappy, Lil Jon, some of those type folks, is just kind of a leftover type vibe way out in 2005 as far as that pitch kind of goes along with it. It's a decent type bop, does its damage. I definitely feel like this is some basic type music. This is definitely some basic type music for some house party type fare, just within a vanilla sense, but it's just kind of substandard just within the relative pitch. I do feel like if you can find some better ones, there's one song on here like $Million Trap House that completely flattens this song, but it's still a pretty good basic type song to kind of get for like some entry type stuff and some Kickstarter type stuff. But there's easily more shrill songs on this particular project, but I do applaud Ecstasy for doing a pretty relatively good job within that pitch, but good enough Kickstarter kind of get within that. Hustle Harder with T.I. and Sleepy Brown's a decent one. This is kind of one, I do like the composition of this song, but it just is kind of somewhat preachy, I'd have to say in particular. It's just a good hustle tune. It's just kind of the concept I would have liked a little bit more recreational type fare about it. Basically, this is like a solid grind tune, I'd have to say in particular. It's like some workaday commerce. I would definitely feel like either for brunch or afternoon type vibes. This song definitely motivates, but it's almost too composed. This song definitely motivates, but it's almost too composed, I'd have to say in particular. It just doesn't really have much time for smokage and tunes like that. Just getting some food, some pitches like that, just some relative kickback. This is not really a relaxation R&R type song. This is definitely one where you're on the grind, getting to it, getting to the money, some pitches like that, just over on the grind, and just a little bit overtly to the point of that as far as that pitch kind of happens with it. I mean, it's a good song if you're trying to get some money, trying to get your pay up, stuff like that, trying to level up some of those type pitches. It works to kind of inspire you as far as that pitch kind of goes, but it just doesn't have much recreational type fare. I would just look after it if you're just going to get snackage, maybe you just have like a long drive, something like that. You just want something a little bit more motivational, not quite as much of like a slack type tune. I'd have to say in particular, it works for what it is, but it just does not have much recreational type fare. This is definitely more for like motivation, more so than like the standard kind of boppish type feel. Or I feel like T.I. just chose that particular concept. I did like the concept of seeing a song with T.I. and Sleepy Brown. Usually Sleepy Brown teams up with Outkast, but I do like this particular pitch. Sleepy Brown delivered like somewhat of a good hook. It's a decent bop. I've heard better Sleepy Brown hooks, but it's a decent type one. It's an almost song for me just because I would have liked some more recreational type fare, something like maybe like some lines about drinking a beer or something like that, just relative kind of kickback type pitch, just smoking, having some good times, getting some KFC, something like that. I just look after it, but decent tune. Basically the only real new T.I. song that's on here that's not, besides Bounce Like This or something like that. T.I. is really not on this particular project that much. Most of these PSC type songs are individual type ones. I mean, you'll find other members on some of these type songs, but they're just somewhat difficult to individualize as far as that pitch kind of goes, but I do look after it. So, but probably one of the best songs on this particular mixtape is Lollipop Gangsta by Young Dro. It's a definite nice one. It's like a summery kind of lazy day cruise around type tune, I'd have to say in particular. It's definitely like a sunny kind of sip a brew and smoke one type bop, I'd have to say. It's great for like a lazy kind of July day, something in that relative pitch, just kind of simmering sun, stuff like that. Just the relative kickback type pitch, just cruising around your whip, something like that. Just appreciating the skies, the barbecue type music, lemonade, stuff like that. Real nice one to smoke one too. Just a real lazy type song that just has some affability, I'd have to say. Another hustle song that's better off this particular project is I Hustle by Mac Boney. I appreciated this one a little bit more because this one has a little bit more fanfare about it. This is like a steadfast kind of hustler's workaday. This is like a steadfast kind of hustler's workaday song, I'd have to say in particular. Just like the particular pitch about that. It's like an afternoon commerce type song, I'd have to say in particular. Definitely like that. This is like some afternoon commerce, which is a pretty good pitch in particular as far as that kind of goes along with it. Just some great stuff to kind of get there. And this is like a wrapping things up kind of song that's pretty engaging, I'd have to say. So this one's a little bit more thrilling compared to Hustle Harder, where Hustle Harder was a lot more motivated and this kind of more steadfast type one. This is definitely one just kind of getting tasks wrapped up, getting ready to go grab some food, something like that. Just that relative pitch of just things winding down in terms of like your work shift type fare as far as that pitch kind of goes along with it. Just the concept, maybe like a primer to some good turn up as far as that pitch kind of goes along with it. Just the concept of just like a standard day, just kind of work shift type fare, just within a hustler's type sense as far as that particular kind of goes along with it. Just some good stuff, like some 2000s type fare just within that pitch. It's just kind of the concept that afterward, just kind of the concept once, just feels like the composition of it feels like maybe there's about an hour or two left of like stuff that you have to do before you can get to getting crunk and stuff like that. But for the most part, there's not a ton of real nightclub type songs on here, I'd have to say in particular. It's an interesting concept, but this is pretty, I mean, it's steady. I mean, it's just a steady type project, really has some gems on on here just for mostly cruising out and just kind of having that relative just fare of just getting tasks and errands type done. It's standard workaday type fare. It's just more kind of work shift, just kind of midday afternoon, 2 o'clock to 5 o'clock p.m. is from what I've seen thus far, minus Annie Ho as far as that pitch kind of goes. But I think I talked about this one. I'm not really sure. I'm going to talk about it again if I haven't. It's $1 Million Trap House. This is by Big Country King. It's a pretty nice one. It's like a great house party kind of. This song is like a great house party kind of pseudo crunk Kickstarter of a song I had to say in particular. And this song is definitely some evening thrills, I'd have to say. It's probably the most lively song on this particular project. It's a real electric type one that works pretty well. This one really is like the demonic. This one really has the most demonic type energy on here. It's the most thrilling type one. Definitely some Friday night type music. And it's an interesting pitch for like a mixtape type song. Definitely need more songs like this. I want to say that even like the PSC album from 2005 didn't have full-blown carnivorous type songs like this. I mean, Set It Off was pretty good, and then like I'm a King was a pretty decent crunk bop as far as that pitch kind of went along with it. And there was like a third single, I don't remember what it was. Oh yeah, Do You Thing was a pretty nice one. That was a pretty pounding type club song. But I really have to say, the $1 Million Trap House really feels like something of like Jeezy's Trap or Die with a little bit more southern type flashback. Just what I would have to say in particular. So that's a pretty nice one. Really appreciate Big Country King's energy on this particular song. Wish it would have been in like a more standard song format. It's just one lengthy verse, but still is a pretty thrilling one to kind of get on here. Definitely some gleaming type vibes that work pretty well. Pretty much one of the best, top 3 of best songs on this particular mixtape, I'd have to say. And then the Governor song, Ooh Ooh, is a really nice one. This is to a Dr. Dre beat off the Chronic 2001. It's a pretty good spin on that, I'd have to say in particular. It's like a stellar kind of melodic quality and surprise hit instrumental to reinvent. This song has some stellar kind of melodic quality about it, I'd have to say, and this is like a surprise hit instrumental to kind of reinvent, I'd have to say in particular, and it's just butter smooth, I'd have to say. So it's pretty nice fare as far as that particularly kind of goes. Real interesting kind of affability, and just a surprise hit. It's definitely one of Governor's better songs I've heard from him in particular. It's definitely a pretty nice one. I mean, he doesn't have a ton of music, but I definitely appreciated this one. It's a real nice spin on a Dr. Dre song. Not too many R&B artists have really done that, so it's a pretty good pitch to kind of get like an R&B type freestyle as far as that pitch kind of goes along with it. Just some clever stuff to kind of get that. So this is a real nice reinvention, really kind of a clever type one. Pretty much one of the best songs on the mixtape, I'd have to say, definitely overall. It really happens to be the concept. So basically talk about some of the songs I don't recommend on here. There's just a couple poor instrumentals and stuff like that. I was really kind of disappointed by Crime Game. That one's just kind of like PSC's West Side, just didn't deliver that well, I'd have to say in particular. There's just some poor type productions on here. The Crime Game's the poor type one. The other Ecstasy song, Truth Unfolds, just kind of a poor type one. That one was just didn't have the same composition as Anyhow, I'd have to say, just kind of the concept about it. Truth Unfold just had some evening type fare that just wasn't engaging enough to really pull out the vibes as far as that particularly kind of went. $1 Million Trap House 2 by AK was just not as compelling of one as the $1 Million Trap House 1 by Big Country King. I'd have to suppose particularly just didn't have the same type pitch in terms of like the energy and overall affability behind it. Mac Boney's Scarface was just a poor type one. That one just wasn't that thrilling to kind of get. It was just kind of another rugged type one that just didn't work that well. It was just another disengaging one like Crime Game and West Side as far as those particular pitches kind of happen with it. Just some poor type ones. So there's just some ones on here that just didn't stack up too much just in terms of that relative type pitch on here. Just kind of the particular concept about it. Breadbox had a pretty disappointing beat on here. I was expecting more from like another PSC type song that said Big Country, Mac Boney, and AK on it, but this really didn't have like a Liddy type one. That one was trying to be like a Don Cannon type beat, just a more kind of hustle type one, similar to like I Hustle and Hustle Hard or some of those type pitches. Another kind of get on your grind type tune, but just didn't pull out the vibes quite as well. That one had a pretty poor production. This was not that glimmering or real sparkly as far as that pitch. That one was not that glimmering or overall sparkly as far as that pitch kind of went along with this. That one was just kind of a poor type one. I mean, maybe that could have almost been an almost song of it if the production fare had been a little bit better, but it just didn't quite add up to much. That was one that I was almost kind of on the fence about, but it just didn't quite get up to snuff. So me basically recommending pseudo 10 songs out of 16 on this particular project. Basically 4 songs are songs you can find elsewhere, 2 songs are almost songs, and 4 songs are full-blown songs I recommend. I'm going to go ahead and give this mixtape like a 6.75 out of 10. I feel like that's pretty good quality. I'm raising the score a bit just because this is a mixtape. This is free. This has some Heralded stuff on here, some stuff you can't find anywhere else, and just some secret kind of songs that are just interesting aspects just about it. But this is kind of like a steady album. A lot of hustle songs on here, a lot of good day commerce, just stuff like that. Just a lot of on your grind type stuff, just kind of work shift type tone as far as that connotation kind of goes. It's motivated and kind of inspired as far as that pitch kind of goes. It's real steadfast just within that pitch. Not really much time for thrills and nightlife as far as that pitch kind of goes. I mean, there's more of those than like the PSC album, but for the most part, this is just real composed and stuff like that, especially from T.I. as far as that particular kind of pitch goes along with it. Just some of these songs on here, like some of the PSC songs that are on other projects like Fuck Where You From, Set It Out, Bounce Like This, those are some nightclub type bounce of songs, but you can just find them on actual studio albums like The Longest Yard soundtrack and like the PSC albums. So I just would recommend getting them there. And then PSC Shell you could just get on the Young Dro project, despite the fact that this came out first. It's just kind of concept about it, but this would have to say that's a concept. Just real steady and composed. Just work shift this with the new songs I recommend. But there is some decent kind of crunk leftovers on here, some stuff like that, like Big Country and Ecstasy. Try some of that out. But I definitely feel like this project needed like an exclusive Ti song that just was a little bit more just rambunctious and just overall night thrills as far as that pitch. But that's not too much of a natch, but it's just something. It's just, you know, it would be good. It's kind of within the concept. But the social score, that's kind of difficult. I'm going to give the social score, I'm going to give like a 5.75 out of 10, because there is some quality on here, but it's just a lot more composed just within the composition. It's just a lot more composed just within the composition of it. I'd say it's just more steadfast stuff like that, at least in terms of the new songs that are not to be found elsewhere and stuff like that. When it comes down to like the 4 songs I recommend that are entirely new, Lollipop Gangsta, I Hustle, the Ooh Ooh song by Governor, and then $1 Million Trap House. I mean, there are some ones on here, but I do feel like I Hustle is kind of more of a hustle type song, obviously. Same thing with Hustle Harder with T.I. and Sleepy Brown. And then Ecstasy's and Hoes is kind of a leftover crunk. So it's just kind of the concept. I would at least say songs like Lollipop Gangsta is just more of like a cruise out kind of lazy day type tune. That one's really not as ferocious. I Hustle is just steadfast. Hustle Harder's kind of steadfast. $1 Million Trap House is at least a crunk song, and Any Ho is kind of a crunk song, but I would just look after it. And then Governor is kind of a good R&B type mixtape song, type song. But then if you throw in like the PSC song Breadbox, that would actually be about 3 songs. But then if you throw in the PSC song Breadbox, that would be like another relative highlight. I mean, it's not one I'm going to recommend, but it's a relative type one. Just that's a new song that still has some of that hustle type mentality. So it's this kind of concept, steadfast type project here, just within the aspect, relative lays, this kind of stuff, just as far as that pitch goes along with it. But it's got some relative stuff, some new type pitches, but it just doesn't really have like a full blown knockout smash. I definitely feel like the Young Dro song's pretty lazy day, just for like some smokish type tunes. I definitely appreciate $1 Million Trap House by Big Country King. That's a real nice one to kind of get some house parties type started as far as that pitch kind of goes. But it's basically just like some bonus packaging. I would just pick up some of these treats and just apply them to where they're necessary as far as that pitch kind of goes. But just in terms of like a mixtape that just has, I mean, it's a solid enough mixtape. It's just kind of concept that you just have to look around for it, just because there's not a ton of songs really on here that can't be found anywhere else. And then on top of that, this is kind of the concept as far as trying to say that you have to apply them to like the certain aspect as to where they're necessary. And T.I. does not really give you like the anchored kind of hits that you need on this particular project, at least in terms of exclusives. So he provides you with like a real steadfast kind of hustle song. For the most part, you just have to dissect and figure out which ones to kind of put towards it. But it works within that sense, but it just maybe it feels lacking just because there's not really like full blown kind of crunchy type nightclub type songs that are just meant for house party type pitches. I mean, you get them, but just not from like the big heavyweights like Young Dro, and more songs from Big Country and hit songs from T.I. and pitches like that, I'd have to say. So, and even Mac Boney doesn't really do like nightclub songs on this particular project, so it's just kind of cuts out, just I'd say. But 5.75 social. So in terms of the future, like PSC has not really put out projects since at least 2005 or early 2006, something like that. It's this kind of concept. They kind of dried up as far as that pitch kind of went along with it. T.I. still puts out projects. You can still find Young Joe around. In some cases, you might be able to still find Big Country King and some stuff like that. I'd have to say it's this kind of concept. But the PSC individual members have dropped individual projects and stuff like that. And there's definitely more PSC mixtapes to get to. And I have to get to the Industries 1, 2, and 3. Some of those have pitches. I reviewed the 4th one, which is an album, but just to be able to say there's some more to kind of get to here. Decent little projects, some secret kind of stuff. You just have to apply it to where it's necessary, I'd have to say. But for the most part, it is relatively good. And I do recommend it.